It's 1964. It's a beautiful Southern California day, 73 with a light breeze, like it is every day in Southern California, in Whittier, where I grew up. And I am doing my very most favorite thing in the whole wide world, which I am pounding the crap out of my best friend and next door neighbor, Craig Flanders. But don't feel bad for Craig, because he was pounding the crap out of me. That's what we did. And when we weren't building forts, or jumping off roofs, or playing chicken with our skateboards around the pool, we were always together. I mean, we were best friends. We were together from the minute the sun came up till when it went down. And this day, this lovely day, we're wrestling around on the grass, and we're just really, and then all of a sudden, he didn't mean to, but he hit one of my little 11-year-old niblets. And I screamed, because I had never felt that pain before. And he leapt back with a look on his face like, did I break her? What's going on here? And I'm like going, oh, no, it's okay. Come on, let's wrestle, let's go. And he went, no more wrestling with the girl next door. Because now she's a girl. I was no longer the tomboy, the life that I loved. I was a girl in that moment. And I didn't really want to be one. And I didn't really know how to be one, because I'd never been interested in being one. I mean, it wasn't like I thought I was a boy. It's just I wanted to act like a boy. That's all I wanted. But I knew that that day was going to be, a big change in my life, and I was going to have to sort of change a little bit, because the truth was, I really loved boys. I loved to beat them up. And within the year, I wanted to kiss them. But it never changed. I loved boys, and I would do anything to be around boys. So I had to ask myself, well, what are you willing to change to get to be with the boys? And I only had 3 role models at that time. Back in 1964, we only had 3 channels. And the first one was Donna Reed. She was that lovely housewife with the pearls and the heels. And she was always smarter than her husband, but wise enough not to tell him. And then the second model was the Marilyn Monroe, Elizabeth Taylor, sexy, femme fatale, having power over men with their body. And I thought, well, that's not happening at 11, so not yet. But it was a model, something I could do. And the third one was Katharine Hepburn, because she was a tomboy. Yeah, but in all her movies, she ended up with some guy, and kind of ended up being, maybe not as equal as I wanted her, but she was the best I had to go on. Anyway, so I started practicing and practicing being somebody different. And I finally practiced so well, I started to get boyfriends. In my senior year in high school, I got a good one. His name was Elliot. He was a soc, I was a weird drama kid, and nobody had any idea of why we were together. I mean, nobody. I have a friend from high school that just called me last week, and she said, we were talking about this, and she said, how did you two ever get together? I mean, she was, what a fan. And I told her what I'm telling you now, is that I had learned how to listen and say nothing. I had learned to be sort of invisible, but sort of there. Sort of like a confessor. And we would go out, every night we'd go on these dates, and we would talk. Well, he would talk. He would talk, and I would go, oh, you're wonderful. Someday, I'll have your little Jewish baby. Someday. The only thing that I had going for me is I was still in theater, and by my senior year, I was doing like all the leads in the plays and stuff like that. So I guess I was good enough in that way. But, I mean, I never really talked about it, because you don't need to talk about it. And he was the one that brought me roses on the stage when I did Mame. Oh, my moment in the sun. And then we decided to have sex. And we were both virgins, so we were kind of excited. But what happened after we had sex was we stopped talking. Whatever talking had been going on was not going on. Because anytime we were alone together and there was no adults about, we having sex. Now I can't blame him, he was 18. He just learned how all this works. And I would go along because, well, you know, he was wonderful. So then we graduated. And I had this wonderful opportunity to go and work in a summer stock company. I mean, this is what I had always wanted to do since I was very little. Other than beat up boys, I did want to be an actress. And I was the only non-college student to be invited. They had only invited 10 women and 10 men. This is a big deal. And it was up in the Sierra Nevada, you know, not that far from Whittier, but far enough that I probably wouldn't be seeing Elliot very much over the 8 weeks I was there. So he was kind of upset about that. And I said, well, I'm going. And he said, okay, you know, I'll write you letters, because then we didn't have email then, no Skype or anything. And my parents were going to come up and see the plays, and he said he'll come up with my parents and see the plays, you know. Everything will be fine. So I went. And I was in heaven. This was my idea of heaven. 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, I was doing theater. And I was building sets, and I was in the plays, and I was doing lights, and I was so happy. And it's not that I forgot about him, because I did have a picture by my bed. But there were some really cute boys there. But I was faithful. I was a faithful girl. And I would get letters from him, and he would get letters from me. Now, the letters that I got from him were never about me. They were about him. They were about what he was doing. The co-workers, in other words, the girls he was meeting, and how much he missed me because he had no one to talk to or have sex with. Warmed my heart. Why wouldn't it? Love being reduced to that. And he never asked about the plays I was in, or was I having fun, was I meeting people, you know, was I being ravaged by squirrels up in the Sierra Nevada, what was actually going on with me. He never asked. For the 8 weeks I was there, I waited for him to come visit. And then my parents came, and he didn't. He didn't come. And I don't really blame him, because I had taught him how to treat me. I was always second class. I was the listener. I was the less than. And that's how he behaved, so how can you blame somebody, you know, when you'd lied to him for all that time about who you really were and what your ambitions were. But I did stop having sex with him. Well, that was sweet. So that one didn't quite work. The Donna Reed didn't really work for me. So I decided to become the femme fatale of Rio Hondo Junior College. Because by this time I had the full boobs, the full ass, and some sassy turtlenecks. And the boys, they came a-running. And I felt like I had all the power in the world, right? I was picking them out, you know, taking names, you know, putting little notches on the bedpost. And I thought to myself, I'm like a boy now. I am just not caring. I'm just going to sleep my way through life. And I did that. I slept with boys, and then young men, and then men. And then I was really unhappy, because I still wasn't like I had been with Craig Flanders, you know, that equal, that no thought about whether you were a girl or boy. You know, I was just as good at pounding boys as they were good at pounding me. And I knew that I had that in me to be equal, or even better. But equal I would have settled for. So I kind of went on my way. I was acting. I finally found myself in the most perfect situation for me as a career. I was living in Olympia, Washington, and I was working part-time as a theater teacher, which was so fun. And the rest of the time I was working for a theater company who was actually paying me to do roles I would have paid them to do. And I was trying out my Katharine Hepburn, you know? You know, I had it all together. I knew what was happening. I had a dog. It was all good. And then I met my Spencer. I was playing Nancy in Oliver, and he was playing Bill Sykes, which should have been a clue. For those of you who don't know the story of Oliver Twist, Bill Sykes kills Nancy at the end. He's not a nice man. But I fell so deeply in love with him. His name was Jeff. He was deeply in love with me. I had already gone through the 2 aforementioned gay marriages. So I was extremely excited for a man who liked women. And that was a whole new world. And very exciting. And we fell completely crazy in love with each other. And I figured, well, he saw me. I was the lead in the play. He had the supporting role. He knows who I am. I'm a teacher. This is what I do. This is my life. And we talked about getting married, and there was only one little problem, was that he was more like Spencer Tracy than I wanted him to be because he was an alcoholic. And I didn't know it at the time, but I know it now because I've read her autobiography. Kate took care of him. She used to lie on the hotel floors in the hallways in front of his door so he wouldn't wander off in the night. Kate Hepburn, my role model. Ooh. Anyway, I told him I wouldn't marry him unless he went into rehab, which he did. So we got married, and things seemed to be pretty hunky-dory. And we had decided that we were going to actually be helpful to each other in getting our careers going. He had kind of ruined his career with drinking and journalism, so he was going to start that back up. And I really wanted to get my Master of Fine Arts in theater so I could become a theater director. And we were going to do it together, the wind between each other's wings, yay! So of course we started with him first. And he, because he had never finished college, the only job he could get was in a little weekly newspaper. You may know of it, in Lincoln City. It's called we used to call it the Weekly Schmooze or something. The Schmooze Guard, that's what we called it, the Schmooze Guard, it was the news guard. Made $189 a week, yes. And I had to give up my perfect life. I didn't have a teaching credential. In Oregon, I couldn't teach. There wasn't a professional theater on the coast, so I started working for minimum wage in a hotel. But I was doing it for a man. Yes. And then next it was going to be quieter. My turn's coming. It's coming. And it did. A year later, I got into the University of Oregon in the Master of Fine Arts program in theater directing, and I went to Eugene. And he stayed in Lincoln City, but it was okay, because I'd come home every weekend. He had Tuesdays and Wednesdays off. He'd come visit me in Eugene. Guess how many times he came? In 4 months, he came once. On our anniversary, and it was to give me a clock radio. Is it the second year of marriage clock radio? Yes. So you think it was. And I actually had that clock radio until about a year ago. The only thing good he ever gave me. No, that's not true. So he didn't come and visit me, and by Christmas break, it was pretty clear he was drinking again. And by this time, I knew a little bit enough about Al-Anon that I knew that if he had stopped drinking for me, he was going to start drinking because of me. And he said it was because I wasn't around enough, which was true. But see, I was in school doing what I loved, and I didn't care. Again, it was just like Elliot. I didn't even think about him that much. I was so absorbed, you know, in my work and what I was doing, and I was so happy and so excited, and I loved him, but I didn't need him. I didn't need him. So we moved in together where I was driving an hour each way so that I could be there, so I guess, I don't know, so he'd stop drinking. That didn't work. That summer when I was 7 months pregnant with the child we had decided to have, because I was getting old, I was 36, he told me that not only did he want to drink, he was now in love with a 22-year-old girl. And that she needed him, and I did not. And that I was too ambitious, I was too independent, and I had too many friends. I was doing the full cage at that point. We tried some counseling, and he told me in front of the counselor that he would stay with me and help raise the baby if I would quit school, and I could only have a job the same hours as his. And I didn't know what to do, because I frankly was 7 months pregnant, halfway through an MFA program. No one's going to hire me. I have no money. What am I going to do? So I said, okay, for about a day. And then I said, no. I'm going back to school. Fuck you and the horse you rode in on. And he left. He left. And I was left to finish my MFA, raise this baby, which I did. Now this was a role model I had never seen until I was older, the single mom. You know, I just hadn't seen that growing up, and so I was sort of winging it. You know, but I was doing, I think, a fairly good job. But what happened to me when he left was so amazingly painful. It was worse than the niblet thing. I have never felt pain like that before. I mean, emotional pain. And I never really wanted to feel that emotional pain again. And since for me 3 times wasn't the charm, I quit. I just closed up shop. I figured I got enough to do. My career's always made me happy. I have this little boy. He is fabulous. And I can caretake him, and it's appropriate. And one day he'll grow up and go away. Which is wonderful. Which is what happened. So I raised my son by myself. He's now 27. And I live alone with a cat. I'm a cliche. And I thought I was fine. I really did. I thought I was done with men and I didn't really need them. But the truth of the matter is I have always, every single day, I like boys. I love boys. And I want to play with them. We can start with wrestling. But I was so closed off. I mean, I really was just so closed off. And then, just the last couple of months, I went to see this wonderful little film. It was up for the Oscars. If you haven't seen it, it's called Call Me By Your Name. You should go see it. It's the most beautiful film I think I've ever seen. I didn't expect to feel what I felt when I saw it, because it's about 2 young men who fall in love, and that's not me. But I wept like crazy at the purity of this love that's in that movie. And then I went back to see it again, and I wept again. Then the next 5 times that I went back, I kept on weeping. Then I read the book twice, and then I met the author last week. Yeah, he signed my t-shirt, not this one. But what that movie showed me, through the tears, because I wasn't just crying in the movie theater, I was opened. Something cracked. And I thought, I've always wanted that equality in a relationship. I have always wanted to be adored as well as adore. Is it too late? Have I waited too long? You know, I'm 65, the men are dying off. So I've had a couple of things happen that seemed pretty cool. I was coming out of Fred Meyer the other week, and usually, I know that a man was opening the door, and he was going to come in, I was going to go out. And usually I would like kind of notice, and I would keep my eyes down, because that's just what I did, that's what I learned to do. But for some reason I didn't this time. I looked up at him, and he happened to be sort of a handsome man my age. And he smiled at me. And I was verklempt. I smiled at him, probably like this, as I went to my car. But it gave me, I mean, I live in Wilsonville. He's got to be around. So I'm sure I'm going to find him again. But then the other thing that happened was a little bit, not quite as exciting, but you know, it was kind of exciting. I used to drive for Uber sometimes, because it's either that or Walmart, and I don't like to stand. So I was driving one night, it was around 10 o'clock, and I pick up this young man. Now, lots of people, when they're a solo rider, they'll sit in front with you, which is what he did. I don't care. He was young. I don't care. I knew I could beat him up if I had to. But then he did something very strange, and this is what the song's about. So I will pick up my ukulele. Now, if you get into the song and you want to sing or dance, don't, because it's my song. And you won't hear the lyrics. You got into my Uber, drunk as a teen at prom. You took one look at me, and you said, let's get it on. I said, I know it's dark in this car, but I'm no spring chick. And you're what? Maybe 22. And you're acting like a moron. Please stop flirting with Grandma. You stupid hipster twit. 'Cause flirting with Grandma is gross. And it's inappropriate. Well, he told me he had some sexual skills. And he didn't mean to gloat. I said, I've slept with 20-year-olds. I know that you don't. Please stop flirting with Grandma. Oh dear God, hear my plea. Find someone for this schmuck to fuck, so he'll stop bothering me. Yes, please, this is where you could sing. Flirting with Grandma. You stupid hipster twit. You stupid hipster twit. 'Cause flirting with Grandma, flirting with Grandma.